This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Today's discussion is an episode around a key point in business. One of the key points in business is, and there's so many different phrases for this, we call it the MJ moment, the FU moment, the GFY moment, the we're not the right fit for you moment. In every business, there are multiple different pieces as a business grows and establishes itself. There's a piece in a business where you're growing a business and you put up with a certain amount of horrendous behavior from clients and customers because you feel like you can't afford not to. It might be very similar to being at a job. You don't have money put away and you have to sort of take what your boss is delivering, even if your boss is an awful person, male or female. There's that situation. And then there's this great movement in a business where you get to a spot where you effectively are safe. You're a landlord who's got his place leased out. You've got your people fully busy. You're making payroll and doing fine. And you've got to the spot where you could comfortably tell a client or a consumer or a customer who is awful to work with or treats your people poorly that we're not the right fit for you. And there's multiple different ways that you think about this. I thought about it when I finally had enough of a client base in one of the businesses I was in, that I was able to say, I just can't deal with that person or that organization who treats me or treats our people so poorly. One of the great things I used to watch, when we think about the MJ moment, many people think about Michael Jordan. My favorite MJ moment was a very different one. And I'll try and do this and protect the innocent in doing this podcast, in this discussion. But the moment was where essentially a racket sports pro was so sick of getting criticized by a person for how that racket sport pro was feeding the ball, that the racket sport pro at some point took the ball and hit it into a golf course and said, if you don't like the feeds, how's that? And I don't know if I have the story captured perfectly, but it was what I think of as the great MJ moment of all time. And all of us once in a while want to have that MJ moment where we tell the client, in the nicest way possible, GFY, FU, whatever it might be. And it takes tremendous discipline and restraint not to do that. And we all have these clients that come in different ways, different fashions. The most clear one is they treat your people poorly. One of the things I disdain the most is someone trying to give me what they say is helpful advice, but it comes in the context of, well, the person I worked with in your organization is awful. And periodically, of course, any organization with people that are awful, but typically what I find is it's often not the person who works with me or for me or part of my team that's awful. It is just as often, and it's not always the case, but it's just as often the customer that complains is the customer where we would like to have the MJ moment with, the GFY moment with, yeah, I've got enough money, FU moment with, or the sort of moment of sort of it's we're just not right for you. And I have found that one of the great pleasures in life, and it's a very childish pleasure, I know that. I try to have the restraint to never have the exact MJ moment that this racket sports person had years ago, although I respect the heck out of him for doing it. I wish I could have done it myself. I loved it. But the point being that MJ moment, that FU, that GFY, there used to be an adage that the customer's always right. And what I find, and again, this is partly me getting older and being okay and having enough money to say it is very pleasing. And I was able to do this at one point early on in the business where I built a big enough client base to tell the client, we're just not the right fit for you. To me, that moment, that MJ moment, that we're not the right fit for you as a customer, I absolutely find to be so pleasant that it's almost shockingly scary how fun that is. And of course, you can't do that if you haven't built a decent business. You probably can't do it often with really important clients. But when you have this great mix of very unimportant clients that treat you or your people poorly, if you didn't worry about reputational issues in the larger world, and it would be so fun to just say, GFY or FU or whatever the words are. I, of course, would never use those words, but others would. But I do think that the closest you can get to it is, we're not the right fit for you. We can't work with you. And I absolutely applaud leaders that do that. I applaud people that do that. Say, as much as your money may spend, you're not spending it here. We like to think of this as the MJ moment, the we don't need you moment. The greatest key to success in a business is that MJ moment where you've gotten to that spot. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Anytime you have an idea or suggestion, or if you hate this podcast, of course, feel free to text Scott Becker 773-766-5322. And thank you very much for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. As always, thank you very much.